In the news for May the 16th, 2014. 15, actually. Hey, just kidding. 2015 in May. And it's the 16th, 2 more days till my B-Day. And of course, yeah, they have more analysis come on the Philadelphia train that they do believe that somebody threw something into the windshield of the train, which hit, or somebody shot the train, and that's what caused the driver, engineer of the train to speed up to over 106 miles an hour at 9:45 p.m. Tuesday evening. So we just want to let you know, we thought that was a rumor, but they believe somebody threw something right at the windshield of the train, smashed the windshield, and they think it hit the engineer. It didn't kill him because he didn't remember what happened, so I think he was knocked out by the projectile. Of course, they're not really talking about that, but speed definitely was a factor in what caused the crash. Because if you're going over a track that's over, you're 60 years old and it's only supposed to be 50 miles an hour there, and you're going 106 miles an hour, that's too fast for that track, especially going around a curve. You're supposed to slow down. Just like in a car, you slow down. If you don't slow down, you're going to end up flipping over. And usually when you go around in a curve on a road, you usually slow up a little bit. You go 10 miles under speed limit to go around that curve, and you go back up. Of course, people will put up signs often to remind you to slow down before you get there. Well, and of course on the train track, they might not always have those signs up because usually it's common sense, to slow down before you go around a curve. But if he was hit with an object or somebody tried to shoot the train and it startled him, and if it hit him and knocked him out, because they said he don't remember what happened. And it sounds like he might have been knocked out because something hit him from the projectile that hit the thing that smashed the windshield. So it wasn't a bullet, but it may have been a rock or something. We don't really know. But he don't remember what happened because he probably was knocked out slightly and then he came to. And that could explain why he doesn't remember a lot of the events that occurred there. Unless he was on drugs or something, which I doubt it, because they said the windshield was smashed of the train. They do believe something came in that did smash the windshield. So that's more on the New York train crash. Well, not New York, Philadelphia train crash. I told you we're teleprompter free. Obama makes these statements all the time since he's been called to the government life of being president of this land. He was in government life before he was called to the White House, but in government life as far as being president, has always said, we're going to make this government more transparent. But of course, I'm telling you a lie because, we don't see that happening. When a government doesn't tell the people what it's doing, or when people ask their government about what they're doing that's wrong and they don't respond, or they try to arrest those people who whistle blow on them instead of protecting them, you have a crooked government that's full of criminals. That's the only solution that you have. And of course, that's what's happened here as well. And that's what's happening over in Europe. It's a worldwide thing that's happening. They're under like martial law in Europe too as well right now. So this is all happening all at the same time. So they're rolling this out, strategically, but it's all being rolled out. I would be really watching the news because there's a lot more upswing in the Earth's activity as far as earthquakes go. We reported that yesterday. I'm being serious. I would really watch out what the geographical survey says because there's been a whole lot of earthquakes yesterday, a lot more, and there's been uptakes because I got a pro app on my phone. Every time there's one in the world, if the world passes gas, we're going to know it because that's kind of what an earthquake really is. It's friction that's caused by gas or air that builds up or heat, and then it causes friction for the plates to move, and that's what causes earthquakes to happen over time. So that's the thing, and that's what makes volcanoes erupt is because of gas and pressure that builds up in the earth under the Earth's mantle or crust. And it just pushes up forward, and then that's how you get, the big volcano to burst because lava comes in the tubes, and then it comes to the surface and comes out to release that gas-like pressure. Even though it's not like gas that comes out of our car or gas that comes out your rear end when you pass gas, but gas is like steam and vapor. Thermal energy is what that comes out of the earth, and that's like similar to the gas that comes out when you eat spicy food or when you eat any food. You can have gas. Well, the same earth has gas too. It just builds up over time. Just to make it real simple for the children to understand. Kind of be a little funny there too, but some people that are old-fashioned say, "Oh, you're just gross. I can't believe you're talking about that." It's just like when I was making the metaphor about how some people like to take power. We have a landlord over here that was hired, and she's an assistant, and she's trying to train to become management. And we're thinking what happened was is that she, she just likes power so much. So I use the metaphor that's sort of like a intoxication effect, or sort of like sexual effect. I wasn't saying I was talking about sex, but because the lady. There's a lady on the end I was talking to about that, and she just went off the handle and said, "Oh, you always talk about sex all the time," and I don't talk about sex all the time. What was happening is she got mixed up, and she had a brain fart, or brain freeze is what they call it, and she got me mixed up with Danny, because Danny's always relating or saying something innuendo that has to do with sex, because every time we're out there talking, he's always bringing something up. Like one time he's talking about his prostate, around the ladies in mixed company, and that's not something you usually do. Talk about it with the guys, but not with mixed company. And then another time he was talking about his girlfriend, talking about what he did with his girlfriend one time when he was out there and he was getting inappropriate, and she said something, and I said, "You need to stop that, Danny. You're in mixed company. You can't talk like that. You can talk like that with me because we're the guys, but you don't want to talk if you want to. But I don't really want to hear it. But I mean, if you want to talk to me, you can. But you don't want to say this around the ladies." So she got all over me, and she got me confused with him, and she was being real loud. I was echoing off the building saying I was talking about it. She was just uncomfortable because I used the word. I just used an example of how the lady was acting, sort of like that, like she sort of was, getting off on it, sort of in a sexual fashion matter. But I wasn't being gross or nasty. I was just saying an example of how she's acting, because some people get and that kind of effect when it comes to power. And she just didn't like it. She was uncomfortable because she's from the old school, and she doesn't think, that people should talk that way today. And I said, well, I didn't say anything wrong as far as being a preacher goes. I was just using that as an example. But she just thought it was just so bad and uncomfortable, And today when I saw her outside, just to go a few weeks later when I saw her outside, she said hi, but didn't even say she was sorry about it. I said, "You were out of line what you said," and I wasn't mean. I just said it normal like that. And I said, "You should not have said that to me. I think you were mixed up with somebody else, but I understand you were mixed up, and you're probably embarrassed, and you don't want to admit that you did that, and you did do something wrong." She said, "Oh, I didn't do nothing wrong." I said, "You're bringing it up now." I said, "Yeah, I'm bringing it up because you didn't say nothing about it. I'm not bringing it up because I want to keep talking about it. I'm bringing it up so you can have a chance to say you're sorry for what you did. That's why I'm bringing it up, not because I keep talking about it. It's just normal when someone says something that's a falsehood or says something that's not true about you, you are going to talk about it and bring it up because it's something that you're being accused of, something you didn't do or even really say. Or the way it's being taken is not being taken, that's not the truth about it, the way it's being interpreted. So, that's why I brought it up. But, with some people, this lady, all she does is watch TV all the time in her apartment, and she just sits there watching the news, and she just gets scared of everything. There's a lot of people like that out here today. That's why, and I'm not really singling her out, really, to say, not meaning to, but there's a lot of people today, even that don't live in this place, that are just like that. You go in the neighborhoods, the kids don't even play outside anymore. You ever wonder about that? The kids do not even play outside. I mean, you have to wonder. Something's going on because kids should be outside playing, but they're not. Most of them are inside playing on games or just staying inside. Their parents are too scared to have them outside, which they shouldn't be scared, but they are, because that's the real reason why they're not outside. There are bad people in the world, okay, but not all people are bad. Not all persons, like the TV and the news says, is a pedophile. Some are, but most men are not. And also some women are too. More so than men. They're finding out new data showing that women prey on children more than men do. Even though it's stereotypical to say that men do. But there's new data and studies showing that women actually molest kids too. More so than men. You know why? Because they trust the woman more. Children do. And that's why the crimes a lot of times can happen to a child with a female more so than a man, because they trust them more. And they won't talk about it because they feel more comfortable with them. And it's really true, because this is what studies have indicated, and this is what they have said when they were taken into custody, women that were caught doing the inappropriate things with children. And this is exactly what they said. And there's new scientific data to support this very bad behavior and inappropriate indecency. And these are babysitters, these are teachers, these are women youth workers, these are camp counselors. I mean, it's like some people think they can look at somebody and know if they're a pedophile or not. And what I say is through training from what I know from a counselor, that a pedophile can look like just like anybody. There's no certain way how a pedophile acts from a regular person. I mean, a pedophile could be a doctor, a lawyer, a policeman, a government worker. It could be a gardener. A pedophile could fit any of those demographics. So you can't just single them out because some people think because you're single and you're 40 some years old, or you like kids, and they'll say, oh, you're a pedophile because you like to work with kids. The way things are now today, people like to scrutinize things to death, and they think they know more about stuff when really they don't know anything. And they're just going on based on a bunch of lies that the media puts out, mostly, on television. And they kind of take that to mean, hey, this must be true. Because, hey, all these things are saying this. So then you got all these people that are not educated, and they come up with these ideas because they put these ideas in their head from the media. Thinking that, well, they give you some things about what they do, and what pedophiles will do, behavior and things, and then they think they're like a renowned psychologist expert, even though they never went to school for it. And so you got all these people that watch Dr. Phil and shows like that, which is nothing wrong with it, but they take the information and they don't even have a clue about what they're don't know anything about it, and they only go by a few things, and then they say, oh, well, that person must be a pedophile, or my neighbor must be a pedophile, or based on just what little knowledge that they know, never gone to school or even went to college for it. And they think they're just an expert on it when really they're not, because they don't know what they're talking about, because they haven't learned the information. And they don't know all the facts. And that's a lot of the things what goes on, with the scrutinizing that's going on. It's just like, you don't have to be a pedophile. I just use that as one example, but this could apply to all gamuts of discussion. People could say, well, I don't like you, so I'm not going to associate with you, because I think you're trouble. Or I think you're mixed up in something that you're doing that's wrong when really you're not doing anything wrong. And a lot of people like to do that, especially in the church. There's people in the Church of Christ that do it. And it's just so hypocritically, and it's wrong. It's Pharisee. You don't even know what the person's doing, so how do you have the right to say anything? Or what makes you right to judge somebody just because they have a different view than you do? And you don't agree with them, so you don't like them, so you feel threatened, so you want to make up stuff about them. A lot of people in the church do that. They do it more so than people outside the church, which is really disturbing, but they do. I know people, and even I've said, I love working with children. There's nothing wrong with that statement. But people around here, it's in close quarters. People hear it and they misconstrue what you say. I got a lady across the hallway that's mentally off balance, and she does that all the time. She'll hear me say something in here, and she was going around telling people here I'm a pedophile, and I'm not a pedophile. But it really upsets me and hurts me because I don't do nothing to this woman. I just moved in here, and she's always been on my case, saying stupid things that are so not intelligent, all this time. And she doesn't have no basis on it at all, except based on what she watches on TV talk shows, which is not very much education, really. Just because you watch TV every day and watch these shows, it doesn't really help you when you don't know all the information, because you're only getting little blurps of it on TV. You got to go to school and study that stuff for hours and hours. And then you got to go and learn it and then get a degree in it. Then you know it. But even when you do have it, you still don't know it, because everybody is different. Every situation is different. Because when I work with counseling, I don't just look at somebody and say that they're a pedophile. Or I don't look at somebody and say, oh, they're a troublemaker, until I get to know them. And then I see the facts. I don't go by conjecture. What I think, I go by prognosis and watching and observing what they do over a fixed long period of time. It could take a couple months, but it's not something that happens in 5 minutes. However, there are cues that pedophiles do give off, which I'm not going to go through and list them all here right now at all. But there are things that do show sure signs that if they are a pedophile, they will display those behaviors. And, those are guaranteed signs. But the thing is, what you see on Dr. Phil And what you see on Dr. Oz, there's a lot of helpful information on those shows. But if you're not a doctor and you're not a psychologist and you take little sound bites of what they say, does not qualify you to be an expert to be able to diagnose people's problems on a mental level or on a physical level or on a subatomic level. You don't have the education or the background or the expertise or the hours of training to be able to determine that. And even people who are in the field still don't know it either. They know more than you, but it still doesn't make them an expert. I mean, even Dr. Phil has to go and review stuff all the time because sometimes things can look so dead on, but really in reality, when you get all the information and you put it all together from what you get from their doctors and from psychologists and from church workers, from community people, teachers, preachers, professors, judges, etc., etc., even with all that information, there's still a lot of pieces of the puzzle missing. You have a lot more than what you had when you started, but in the end, a lot of that stuff is missing. So don't be so quick to call somebody, a pedophile or a lesbian, or don't be so quick to judge and say that person's not right, because you're not. By you making statements like that without having any information or really any points to base those points on, makes you look like you're not right because you're jumping the gun and you don't know what you're talking about. And you don't know anything really about that person. A lot of times people say stuff and smear people's name and slander people's because they simply don't like that person. It's not because they're guilty of doing anything wrong. It's because they don't like you and they just want to smear you any way they can. And that's the real reason why people like my neighbor across the hall are like that. And they have mental issues themselves. So, of course, everybody's out to get them syndrome kind of mentality. Or, they have issues with trust. They've been violated sexually themselves. And so they think everybody else is a predator or a person that would violate them. So they think everybody automatically is that kind of person because they've been abused sexually when they were growing up. And they've been, could not trust anybody or any men because they have bad experiences in relationships. Or turn around if it's a woman. If it's a man, women have done that to them. So they think all men or all women or violators are bad people because, I don't trust nobody because I had a real bad experience or a few bad experiences. You have to learn to forgive, and over time you'll forget those horrible things. And if they happen to you, I'm sorry. But not all people are pedophiles. And I can assure you, I'm not. Even though my neighbor, every year she likes to stir this stuff up here. She'll stir it up and talk about it with people in the complex and other buildings that she knows. And stir this stuff up with the neighbors here in this building. Just like John last year was asking me questions. Are you a pedophile? He just came out and asked me. And it's because that lady across the hall stirs it up every year. I mean, it's like she doesn't have nothing else to do but stir up problems and stir up, mischief. Or Danny, he's another one that likes to stir things up. He's always saying that other people are doing it, but it's really him that's doing it. He'll be announcing it, because a lot of people like to announce it. Oh, I don't do that, you see. It's got to be Barber upstairs above me or the other Barber. When really, it's really him that's really saying the stuff, really. Because he's always defending himself all the time. And you got to wonder, when someone's always defending himself, you got to wonder that they're probably the one that's running their mouth because they're guilty of it, because they are doing it. And they'll always try to defend themselves saying they're not doing it. I mean, that usually is the case most of the time. So just to give you a little idea of real psychology and counseling, of how this stuff really works in real life situations, this is just a few I share with you. But this is why people are the way they are for the large part. And the people that like to cause trouble and spread falsehoods of all kinds, as the Bible calls them, you just stay away from them, pray for them, because all people need prayers and all people need love. But even when they want to say false accusations about you, whatever they are, and God knows the truth about the whole thing, because he knows your heart, where they don't know nothing, because they only know the surface, where God knows all. So just think about that, folks. When people are calling you names, or when they won't give you a job because of what somebody said that wasn't true, or when they slander you because they're jealous of you because you know more than they do and you can make a lot more money than they do, and you got parents that go around spreading falsehoods about you and saying things that aren't true about you, or you got family members that don't think you can do the job that you can do and saying things that you're not cut out for the ministry and saying things like that, you got to wonder, their day's coming and they're going to have to face and answer those questions. Now, if it's really true and you can't do that stuff, that's one thing. But if you really can do it and they're not allowing you to have the opportunity to do it like they have, then that's a falsehood. And those people will have to re-examine themselves before the Lord for that. So if you got people doing this stuff to you, then you need to really reevaluate those people and get away from them, because they're not really helping you. They're really hindering you, not helping you, to spur you on for the ministry. So you might have to move. You might have to move out of state, go to a different state, and just start all over. And that's fine. And that's the reason why. Because sometimes when you get away from the problems with people who are like that, then, they're not in your life and they don't know where you are, and you can start all over. And then you can blossom, because you won't have them try to debug or try to debow what you're doing, because they want to spread falsehoods and say all kinds of deception about you when they think they're helping you, when really they're not helping you at all. When you have people like that, family members, friends, you thought were friends, but really they're foes, because they're just trying to slander you any way they can, and you're not doing nothing wrong. But they just feel so threatened about you because maybe you could do a better job than they can. And they don't want you to do it, because they'll feel like you'll be more popular. And when it shouldn't be about popularity, it should be about just doing God's work, because that's what I'm doing. And that's what I really want to do, and do it for a ministry. This is Michael DeSilvis in the news. It's spiritual matter, and also other news as well. Keep it right here. We got more coming. Sunday service, I'm looking at it right now, is going to be coming from Romans chapter 6, verses 1 through 11. And the title of the sermon is, We Are All Going to Die. So be looking forward to that. It'll be out tomorrow, coming from Romans chapter 6, verses 1 through 11. All right. So I will see you later. Thanks a lot. Please donate. Please donate so we can do more for you. And please subscribe down below and tell your friends about us. And I'll see you later. Love you. Stay strong in the Lord. Bye for now. Shalom.